Thank you all again for assembling today. Today I'm going to talk about the American with Disabilities Act and how it has provided protection for the disabled community, but that protection has not been afforded to all of its members. As a member of the greater disabled community, I have a prosthetic right leg, and as well as being a member of the marginalized group within the greater disabled community, I understand what it means to be discriminated against due to my disability. So, in the American with Disabilities Act is the definition, the disability definition. And while this has protected people, it has created a subclass of people within the disabled community that is neither fully protected legally nor fully capable as society perceives them to be. So, today we're going to talk about three major points. The two schools of thought about disability, which governs the basis behind the disability definition. I'm going to actually read the disability definition as found within the American with Disabilities Act, discuss it briefly, and then what the disability definition in the American with Disability Act does to the greater disabled community. So, there are two schools of thought in the disabled community, the medical model and the social model. The medical model, according to Llewellyn and Hogan, two disabled philosophers, defines disability as a physical impairment that requires treatment. It's condition. So the disability is something a person has. And this is the most prevalent model as in the United States. It's been this way since the 1950s, according to Christopher Donahue. Now, the social model says that it's society's perceptions towards the perceived to be disabled that creates a disability. So it's what society thinks of the person instead of the person actually having the condition. Now, this is an incredibly prevalent school of thought in the United Kingdom, but it's only been in the United States for roughly 25 years. So about 5 to 10 years before the American with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990. So, those are the two schools of thought with regards to disability. Now, let's see if we can see those within the actual disability definition as found within the ADA. So, as disability is defined in the American with Disabilities Act, the term disability means, with respect to an individual, a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities of such an individual, a record of such impairment, or being regarded as having such impairment. So, some clarifications on that. It's a legal document. When it means major life activities, walking, running, bending, lifting, breathing, etc. Stuff that a disability could limit. Now, being regarded as an impairment means that you've been discriminated against or had something done to you because of an actual disability or a disability that's perceived to have occurred. However, disabilities that are considered transitory, which is a 6-month period, aren't considered under the American with Disabilities Act. It has to be more than 6 months. It has to be something you live with almost on a day-to-day basis for over 6 months. So, it's kind of hard to understand why I talked about the medical and the social model, but the medical model is seen within disability as a physical or mental impairment. It's condition, as defined by the disability definition as the medical model. The social model is seen as being regarded as having such an impairment. Society thinks you have the impairment. So, we've gone through the definition. So now it's time to understand what the American with Disabilities Act as a whole does for the disabled community and its effects. So, it has protected against discrimination. I'm not trying to discount the fact that on pages 30 through 40 there are 10s, 20s, 30 amendments that govern disability relations among disabled people and to the non-disabled to the disabled. For instance, accessibility ramps. In public establishments that have stairs, it is required that a disability ramp is in place. And before the signing of this document, that wasn't the case. So it has protected the disabled. However, going back to the definition with the difference between the perceived and the fully disabled, the people who are legally fully within the definition, it's created two groups. I term them Group 1, Group 2, the legally disabled, which is Group 1, and the perceived to be disabled, Group 2. So the legally disabled are fully disabled, legally and in the sense of perception. A wheelchair-bound individual can't walk and is perceived to be disabled because they can't walk. So there's one or more impairment that limits one or more life activity. And this is the group that's explicitly protected under the American with Disabilities Act. The accessibility ramps example I just used is an example of that. Now, Group 2, on the other hand, the perceived to be disabled, it's the group that's either or. They're not fully disabled because for a majority of the time they aren't disabled. They're not considered to be disabled. They don't have a condition that limits a major life activity. People with prosthetics can walk, run, etc. They may not be able to do it as well, but they can still do it. So, again, it's an impairment, but it doesn't always hinder the ability to do a life activity. And this group is not necessarily protected by the ADA. The protection, if there is any, is more implicit. It's not explicitly stated. They're implicitly protected because they're kind of in between being fully disabled and not fully disabled. So, as I said earlier, for Group 1, page 30 through 40 on the American with Disabilities Act are the specific amendments that protect them. However, Group 2, it's implicitly stated, and the protection is, the burden to protect is placed on the individual. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, in order for a person with a prosthetic right leg to get a driver's license, you have to prove that A, you have a prosthetic, then you have to get the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles to put a restriction on your driver's license so that you can get a converter kit placed in your car so that you can drive. So this is something that the individual who's disabled has to go through in order to drive. However, if that person wanted to, they could get a handicapped parking pass because they're technically handicapped. So which one is it? Are they fully capable? I mean, you're allowed to drive. You may have to prove that you can drive, but are you handicapped? Because you can get a handicap sticker. So their status is kind of in limbo. So we see these two groups, and we wonder what can be done. So first off, by just doing this, I hope that you're now aware of the fact that there is a division within the greater disabled community. So, 2, we can protest, I don't mean let's go picketing, but we can protest the fact that the ADA doesn't protect everyone it's supposed to equally. So that means that we can petition our legislators to amend the American with Disabilities Act, preferably its definition, so that it at least pays homage to the fact that there are a greater number of individuals who are not fully disabled. We have a lot of veterans coming back getting prosthetics, but they may be able to still walk or run, but are they going to get the protection that they deserve and that they should be afforded? So, we've learned about the two schools of thought with regards to disability, the medical model and the social model. We've read the disability definition and discussed it. And then we've shown what the disability definition does for the disabled community. So now I challenge you to remember the fact that there are disabled individuals in your communities and that they do face difficulties. And remember that even within this disabled community, there's still division. The American with Disabilities Act has done much to better the plight of disabled individuals in general, but it needs to be re-examined so that all disabled individuals are protected equally under its statutes. So, call your senator, call your representative, and let them know that you want the American Disabilities Act to be amended so that there can be liberty and justice for all the disabled community and not just some. Thank you.